So hello and welcome everybody to the NFDI ToolTalk in April. Our speaker today is Nina Weisweiler from the Helmholtz Open Science Office. With her background in library and information science, she contributes to the re3data Core F project as an outreach and community manager and is also involved in strengthening research data repositories in the Helmholtz Association and increasing their visibility in the international research landscape. So today she will present us the Global Registry of Research Data Repositories, our re3data, which is, as she states in her title, the place to be for research data repositories in NFDI. So I'm looking forward to your talk and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Elena, for the friendly introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I very much appreciate this opportunity to introduce re3data, the Registry of Research Data Repositories, to you. And I think I don't have to say so much about myself because I have been introduced already. I'm part of the Helmholtz Open Science Office of the Helmholtz Association, also working for the Helmholtz Metadata collaboration currently, and part of the re3data Core F project, which stands for community-driven open reference for research data repositories. And today I'm here representing the re3data Core F project. And the re3data service. re3data has a long tradition already. I will get into this a little bit later. And I think it has a lot of potential for NFDI consortia and other NFDI infrastructures to support their activities and to make the infrastructures within NFDI more visible. So re3data, as said, is an international registry. We have an international team and also index infrastructures globally across all research disciplines. And it presents repositories for the permanent storage and access of research data. Our primary focus group are usually our researchers, funding bodies, publishers, scholarly institutions, but also other services and infrastructures, as we will see. And our mission is to promote a culture of sharing, increased access, and better visibility for research data. re3data is closely interlinked with other systems. So we have quite a lot of other services, partners that use re3data metadata to build their services. For example, the Open Science Observatory, also the Fuji tool, I think most of you have heard probably, and many others. DataSite Commons is one of them, and this is also on a global level. So I think this also shows why it's really helpful to have information on infrastructures within re3data, because this information will be harvested and then also shown in other infrastructures. Making the data and the infrastructures more fair enabling. We are part of the USC Marketplace. So you can visit re3data there, have a look, and this way it's also connected with the USC infrastructure. re3data is currently the most comprehensive index for research data repositories. It is listing over 3,000 entries at the moment. And as I mentioned, re3data has a long history. It's a pretty old tool in this field, I would say. So it started 2011 with a first DFG-funded project and then went live on 2012. In 2013, re3data was merged with DataBib, which was a somewhat similar initiative in the US at the Purdue University. Since then, we have two co-chairs. One is from the KIT, where re3data is hosted, and one is from Purdue University. Then in 2015, re3data became a partner service of DataSite, also a very important stakeholder in the field of research data management. And has been continued even after the DFG projects ended. And then since 2019 and 2020, there were two new projects, the Fair is Fair project and the re3data COREF project. One is an EU funded project, the other one is DFG funded again. Yeah, and within re3data COREF, we have been quite active. I will show some of what we did later in the talk. So, for example, what we do in re3data COREF is that we develop a new service model for re3data that has been published already. We work on the metadata schema right now. There's a new version, version 4.0 in progress. We also, of course, improve the technical infrastructures and work on quality and transparency issues. There has been a big study on quality assurance measures at research data repositories that has been published by Maxi Kindling and Dorothea Strecker from the Humboldt University. And yeah, we do a lot of community building activities, outreach. That is mainly my focus here. So yeah, these are some of the parts that we focus on. And in general, re3data COREF has the goal to just further enhance and further develop re3data as a tool. And you can see the partner organizations here. So it's DataCite, Helmholtz Open Science, the KIT, and the Humboldt University zu Berlin. We also have two EU projects, one that has already ended in 2022 and one that has just been launched. So that was basically the successor of the FAIR project. Many of you probably heard of Fair Impact or FAIR already, I assume. And one thing that was achieved in FAIR in the project is the integration of repository information into DataCite Commons. So DataCite Commons is where you can find all the linked information that is stored within the DataCite databases. And now you can also look for repositories in there, which is pretty cool because you can see how they are linked to other data sets, to authors and different kind of entities. Yeah, and the Fair Impact project basically builds on top of this work that has already been done in FAIR. So it's a pretty big project. It's actually the KIT that is part of Fair Impact. Yeah, within the KIT, re3data is involved in these activities. So to get a little bit into the topic of the repositories, because we are aware that the term repository is a little bit fuzzy. I think depending on who you talk to, it can be interpreted kind of differently. So re3data uses a pretty broad definition for the term repositories. We say that repositories are a subtype of a sustainable information infrastructure, providing long-term storage of and access to research data. We also have a relatively open registration policy, but it has to be clear that the repository or the infrastructure is run by a legal entity, so that there is some sort of sustainability, for example, a library or a university, that the institution clarifies its access condition to the data and to the repository and has terms of use. And of course, that the repository has a clear focus on research data. However, you can see this on the next slide. If it pops up. Now, there it is. Research data is also for us something that we interpret in a more broader sense. So it's all information objects generated by scholarly projects, which can include the information about experiments, survey data, interview data, but also, for example, image data sometimes. So everything that a researcher would consider as their research data, basically. re3data has an editorial board, an editorial team that is manually curating each entry. This is the typical workflow for new suggestions, but also for change requests. So if someone suggests a new infrastructure to re3data, it will be checked by the editors, first by one person who will look for more information and add all the information to the database and then create this entry. Then there will be a second person reviewing the entry, and then it finally gets published. So there's also lots of quality control steps in between. Of course, with such a huge registry, we are aware that not all information is always up to date, but we are really trying to also establish automatic workflows and make sure that the entries are checked regularly for new information. And also here, it's really helpful for us if the users, if the also repository operators suggest new entries or also update their information within re3data. And then if it is available via re3data, you can look at it through the web interface, but also via an API. re3data uses a very comprehensive and detailed metadata schema that has been improved over the years in a community-driven process. So we always have a request for comments phase if we introduce a new version of our schema. All the data in re3data is CC0 license. That means it's openly usable for everyone and it doesn't have to be referenced. So you can include the information in all kinds of other contexts without having to state, for example, that it comes from re3data. Of course, we are always happy and grateful if someone refers to us, but we are aware that, for example, if you build a tool, yeah, it's helpful if you can pull out all the data. It's completely open and you can always reuse it in different ways. Each entry in re3data receives a DOI. So we have this re3data DOI that will refer to the landing, not to the landing page, but to the re3data page for a repository. That is automatically generated via DataSite, and it can be used to reference repositories uniquely. Those 42 properties cover lots of different aspects of repositories. You have general information, you have institutional information, information about policies, standards, certification of a repository, quality standards. This is also something where the big quality survey that has been conducted will influence the newest version of the survey. There will be new features added. So actually, the 3.1 is already under development again. Yeah, and as I mentioned, these are like the 4 tabs that you can see on the re3data website. When you click on a repository entry, you can see the general, the institutions, the terms, and the standards. And there you have all this information. If it is available, it's being shown here. So not for every repository, all information that is possible with the schema is shown, because maybe it's not available, but usually our editors try to also check out the websites, sometimes or quite often actually also are in contact with repository operators and try to add information where possible. We have different repository types, for example. There can be disciplinary, governmental, institutional, multidisciplinary, project-related. There's different versions. And there's always a description of the infrastructure, the size, the data, like what the repository size is. This is like a little bit variable. So some of the fields are very clearly stated, and they have these also they have controlled vocabularies. For other fields, it's a bit more free what the editors enter there. Then we have the institutions that take care of the operation of a repository. We add institutional identifiers like the ROR, for example, but also other types. We state what kind of responsibility an institution has, and also the country. And I think this is important because you can, on the re3data website, you can filter the information there via different filter options, and you can look at a map. But the map, you always have to keep in mind that it's not the actual, like the repository is kind of a virtual thing because it's a digital repository. And so we have to look at where the institution is, even though sometimes you could say it's hosted on a server in a country, but then if it's a collaborative effort with different countries being involved, it's difficult to say the repository belongs to country X. So this is why we are putting this country information on the institutional, on this institutional tab. Then there's terms. re3data also collects information on policies, access information, 3 different types actually of access information. This is relatively complex, but we have a blog post that describes quite well how this works. So the access can be open, it can be restricted. For example, if you have to register first and create a user account, it can also be closed. So this is what we show within re3data, and most of the repositories in re3data are open, or at least open to download the data. But of course, there's like a lot of different reasons why the data is available, not available, or maybe the access is restricted. And we have standards. So PID systems, I think, is an important part. The kind of software that's being used. Is there any guidelines for data citation? What kind of quality measures? What APIs do they use? So all this information can also be harvested via the re3data API. And then, of course, there's information on when the repository was entered and when the last update took place. So as I said, our editors take care that the metadata in re3data is always correct, complete, and up to date. So we still rely a lot on our users to suggest changes and notice us, for example, if there's any changes with a repository. This can be done via the re3data website. So underneath each entry, there's this little submit a change request button. And if you click on it, you get to another window, and you can enter, or you can enter which information has to be changed. And then this will be double checked by our editors. So this is also why automated updates are kind of tricky, because we know we need a trusted source. We can't allow anybody to just change and add information. And that's why, these processes need some development. But for example, we have we work with Quadtrust Seal to make sure that the information on certification is automatically updated. This is like part of our project at the moment. Here you see in a bit more detail what's the required information. This is also valid if you want to add a new repository. So much for the data input. Of course, the output is also quite important. To reuse the re3data metadata, you can use, as I said, the web interface, a graphical user interface. There you can always filter the data in different kinds of ways. You can also look at metrics that are automatically generated. But you can also use the API to extract information. And within Coref, in the project, we created a few example use cases that can be accessed via our GitHub repository. And there you can check out how you could extract information for what purposes, and you can adapt them to other use cases. And they are currently implemented in R and in Python. We provide them as Jupyter notebooks, sorry. So you can, they're basically interactive. And here's an overview how, for example, the API could be queried. Also, you could, for example, look for all repositories that are being operated by KIT. Then you get the URLs, and then you can get detailed information on each of these repositories via the API. We also have a detailed subject classification that is, I think, an important access point for people who look for suitable infrastructures. So you can always filter by subject area. and we are applying the DFG subject areas here. It's not a perfect classification scheme, but it has been the one that we actually found most practical to use. So we are aware that there are some issues with it, but this is actually, I think, a big topic. And I've also discussed this at several occasions with people that, there's not really the, in German, you would say the eierlegende Wollmilchsau classification. So I think you always have to maybe, it's difficult to find like a perfect version, or to find something that also fits needs of such a diverse user group, because we have so many different disciplines that are being covered within re3data. We have a blog post on this topic as well, so I think that might be interesting for some people. I can also publish or put the links in the chat, but I've already published the slides via Zenodo, so if you like, you can also go through the slides and then just click on the link in there. And another way to help our users to find a repository in re3data, because 3,000 is a high number, is the icon system. Each repository entry has these little like icons on top where you can see if it, for example, has a policy, if it is certified, if it uses PIDs. So these little icons like help you to distinguish at first glance, if you don't want to use like this very long list of faceted filtering. Okay, so I mentioned it already. Research data repositories, research data infrastructures are quite essential for fair data management, for realizing interoperable systems, and also I think in the end for realizing NFDI successfully, because these are the places where research data is being made available most often, and also like what we want researchers to use in many cases, because they are taking care of the data, they're taking care of the data quality. Depending on the type of repository, there's curation efforts, and they can help to basically tackle challenges, or they are also faced with challenges within this field. So, for example, we have the issue that the practices within research data management vary widely across the disciplines. And I think this is a big topic for NFDI, and that is already being shown in the structure of NFDI and the structuring of the consortia. There's like really different needs for each of the fields. You have already a multitude of tools and of different services and of different repositories that kind of make it hard for the user to figure out what they need, what they should choose. So users are confronted with a relatively scattered landscape here. And I see that, in my understanding, the NFDI is also there to help them and to like solve this situation. And re3data can support this mission, I think, because it helps the users to gain an overview. With its filter functions, you can basically narrow down the list of infrastructures to specific needs that you have. So this way you can support the user, or the users can find and select a suitable infrastructure for them. Also, re3data metadata is very reusable. It's already being in use by other services. And I checked that, or I've noticed that, for example, NFDI for Ing has a tool where they list, among other things, repositories. I think the NFDI for Culture is also listing repositories on their website, and partly also building this up on re3data data. You can use the re3data DOIs to clearly reference repository infrastructures and make them more discoverable. You can this way also link them to other information. What we can see with DataSite Commons, that there's like this way to create a graph structure by linking those DOIs, those IDs to other entities. in general, of course, this also creates a visibility for the research data infrastructures because they are being listed, they are being credited because you can refer to them directly. They are also being implemented in other services maybe, or being linked to, so the usage goes up. Yeah, and also this is a tool where you can start to establish best practices, and you can like bring communities together and yeah, try to figure out what you need and how to make the research data management more successful in the end. And that's why I would invite everyone to get in touch with us or to just register infrastructures that are relevant to you in re3data. And yeah, if you have any questions about this, get in touch. We are always open to help. I think there are already some examples. There are already some, like we have already been in touch with some of the consortia. And I hope this was helpful and informative, and I'm very open to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Nina, for introducing re3data and the use for NFDI to us. So now is the time for questions in Zoom. So you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And while that, I'm going to stop our live streaming on YouTube.